In this quantum energy frequency transmission, I wanted to talk about. I just did a video that talked a little bit about what it looked like to be an oracle, and in there, it sort of explained about what about the different layers of tapping in that I do. So there's like, well, I'll just give actually a little bit more detail. So, there's the individual and their energy. There's the individual's Akashic record or ancestral lineage, cellular recall from ancestors, that sort of thing, that also can be read. And then there's the mass consciousness, which is that layer of distortion. That's the layer of beliefs that were thought up and then presented and sort of mushroomed into a concept, or and then it was picked up, caught fire, and then we've got books on it and all this sort of thing. So then there's that layer, and then there's another few layers, but the one that I'm thinking of now, that next one, is another layer of tapping in. So this is a really delicate topic that I want to go over, and it's about child sex abuse. And so when I first sort of had my first major unlocking of my awareness to tap into, to recognize that I was pulling in from the mass conscious at a very grander scale. That was my first layer, right? It took me a little bit to realize that I had developed this chronic cycling of data in the back of my mind that was just below the surface, that started to come through because I started to see it. And that was, there was this perception of exterior belief to other people and their situations, and personal inner work sort of came to a halt because I had hit this point where I felt like if I researched any further to my own inner trauma, I may uncover child sexual molestation abuse. And it became that was such a fear, or that was such an awareness to me in this new expanded tapping in, that soon every situation, every encounter, everybody was a child molester or a potential. And I sort of hermited myself because I knew that there was something really, really overwhelming about my situations I was encountering as far as my perception of everybody else. And that was that they were a mirror, right? So you kind of go along and you're like, okay, I don't want to be out in the world. That's just way horrible. Everywhere you go, it's just there. And that was that overwhelming data that was coming into me, is this, wow, okay, I'm just going to hole up and I'm going to overwrite those thoughts, and I'm going to go, okay, it can't be that bad. It can't be that bad. It can't be that bad. It can't be that bad out there, right? In the meantime, I'm battling my own inner thoughts of, okay, I'm not going to dive any deeper because I don't think I want to know this, And I was praying for a way, okay, can I get through this without actually seeing that? Like, can I accept that I am now a survivor and, like, not go there? Is that cool? I was sort of pleading with my guides going, I got this, I'm going to let that go. Can you do that too? It's part of my own perception of what must be, because that was what was happening in my awareness, right? And if you follow that philosophy that everything's a mirror, then that's that thing that you have to look at for yourself, right? And it got really overwhelming to me, and all this stuff on the news and all that. And, I put it off for a long time. And the first thing that happened is I started to sit through and actually observe and sort of allow myself to relax that first thought of, oh, they must be trying to do something over there, right? And sort of breathe through it. And it was really cool because then I could actually start to relax my own fear and tap into the energy around the situation, not so much personally tap into their business, but allow it to flow to me, as opposed to having that predisposed judgment of what my perception of my own, whatever was coming up, or my own trigger was in that moment. So the first beautiful thing that happened is that I recognized that wasn't always the case. In fact, so far it hasn't ever been the case. At least in my experience, right? So that's been beautiful. That's been freeing, right? Because I was combating that inner fear everywhere. So I don't have to do that anymore, you know. Then something else happened. Before I had the courage to sit and go through that thing, which stopped my progress, right? Stopped my own personal growth process, because there came this point where I wasn't willing to go further. I was still trying to negotiate, right? Let's get around this. Right? I had another expansion. And it went beyond the mass conscious. It went far beyond the mass consciousness, which is the layer of what I would consider, and this is my own perception, distortions, overlays, a matrix, sort of, if you will. When I got there, it was really interesting because I suddenly, when the thought came up that, hey, maybe you want to check this part of your life, maybe you want to look into this, I went right in. Because once I had gotten there, see, that's what I call the wisdom belt, or the wisdom consciousness. It shows you the difference between what the truth is of what it is innately in here through the layers of distortion. So when I connected to my own truth and I got to that layer, got to that truth, I could see that all of my fears had been building over years and years and years of news reports, of stories, of overhearing conversations at the grocery store, at grandma's table, all these things, of all these horrible things that are happening everywhere. It's everywhere. You can't go to the gas station even. You can't go anywhere. You can't go to the park. You can't take your kids anywhere. You can't turn your eye. It takes less than 2 seconds for someone to steal your child. All these things. And do you know what? They were cycling in me like a tornado. And I collected them and I owned them and I said, that is real. That is real. That is everywhere. That was me holding fear that I had claimed ownership of from a mass consciousness. I was operating under all those distortions, and everywhere I looked, it was real. Everywhere I looked, and by this point, again, in the beginning, I already was very well aware how psychic I was. I fooled myself, right? I had to figure it out first, because I was like, wait a minute. My perception of getting myself to this point in my journey tells me the world is way more beautiful than people want to give it credit for. And that's really what I'm trying to share, right? How can I do that if I get out there and I've got all this stuff, right? And then I realized it was a mass consciousness overlaid into me that I took ownership of and I believed, and it caused me to be that fearful. So, my own personal experience through what is a lot of people call spiritual awakening, or inner self-work, or inner truth, finding that thing. There was a point I was really afraid to continue because I was afraid of what I would find. I didn't want to know. But what was really, really beautiful, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody out there, but if this could be the situation for even one person, where they're willing to take that extra step and go a little bit further, and by the grace of God, just have it be that it was just an overlay or a thought projection, not a reality, then I hope this message gets through. Again, that's just my personal experience, but what a glorious one it was. Once I got over that fear, to continue that path of looking within. The world really is a much better place than we really want to open our eyes to see. Blessings. Thank you.